Okay, it's time to cut. What? That's right. That's right.
Hey, welcome to Three Count Commentaries. This is a little bonus segment. I want to talk about something that I was thinking about on March the 16th. So, March the 16th is 316 Day, the Stone Cold Steve Austin celebration day, where everybody all over the wrestling world celebrated Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was very touching. It was great. WWE is doing a 316 week. There have been tons of people doing shout outs, and I've seen random wrestlers doing stunners on and it's been very touching. It's been very sweet. And having lived through the days of when Stone Cold Steve Austin was stunning Steve and going through his ringmaster stage, I was there for that. To seeing him become the biggest professional wrestler in the world, I have to say I am infinitely a huge fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin. He is a great cultural hero, a great archetypal cultural hero. He's fantastic. Even though I don't go back and watch a lot of his material, I don't really go back and watch a lot of Attitude Era. Despite all of that, I am left with the question that who are we going to be looking at in this way in the future? Stone Cold Steve Austin retired in 2003, I believe it was, wasn't it? He had his last match, I believe, in 2003. We have not had a superstar anywhere near him outside of maybe John Cena since. Now you can't do the same gimmick. Of course, you don't have the numbers and stuff like that. But who are we going to be remembering in 15 to 20 years? The same way we remember Stone Cold Steve Austin. The same way as when WrestleMania comes around or the Survivor Series comes around, you remember like Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. Who are we going to be remembering in that time? And it was really something that I really just thought about because I saw so many people, especially so many current wrestlers that are doing the Stone Cold Steve Austin. They're doing his gimmicks. They're cutting the promo. Everybody knows the promos word for word. Everyone has a gimmick vest or a Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt. Everyone's got a picture with Steve Austin drinking beer or dousing themselves in beer. Everyone has these memories of Stone Cold Steve Austin. I have to say, he is probably, now that Hulk Hogan is, swift boated himself with the whole racist stuff, he's probably going to go down in history as one of the most beloved pro wrestlers ever, next to Dusty. There's still a lot of people who hate Ric Flair. Ric Flair would be on the list, but there's a lot of people who hate Ric Flair. But it's going to be Steve Austin and Dusty, probably for the next 10 to 15 years. Who are we going to be looking at? And I'm definitely looking at the more modern roster. The guys who are on the roster right now. Lashley, for Christ's sake, was in a WrestleMania main event with Steve Austin. The Battle of the Billionaires. Steve Austin was the referee for that. So you have these situations where these guys, their entire careers are going to be eclipsed by Stone Cold Steve Austin, and there's going to be constant cosplay of Steve Austin and constant memories of Steve Austin, and it's never really going to go away unless he does something completely and totally fucked up. But what about the wrestlers that are out there today? What about these guys that bust their ass on every Monday, every Friday? Even the guys in Impact and even the guys in AEW. Like, who are we going to be remembering like this in the future? And I remember when I really started thinking about it, it got kind of depressing because it was kind of like nobody. At least not anybody I can think of. It's a completely different ball game. The closest you may have is going to be John Cena, maybe. The closest to that would be Roman. I'm guessing. Is people really going to look forward to when Roman Reigns is 46 or 48 and he can't work anymore? Are we going to have a Roman Reigns week? Because we're going to get our Undertaker week for sure. We've already done that. We have the occasional Shawn Michaels. Even the Bret Harts sometimes. He gets his time in the sun. But it's like nobody really celebrates these guys that go out there today. You know, it's WrestleMania season, you know, and these guys are preparing for the biggest matches of their lives doing cosplay for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, I'm not I'm not one of those people that, you know, that look down on these new guys too much. I give them a hard time because I give everybody a hard time. But I have to ask that question. And that question is a simple one, man. Like, are we going to remember in these guys when they retire 10, 15 years after they retire? It's been 18 years since Stone Cold Steve Austin has wrestled a match. 18 years, man. He retired in 2003. He has not wrestled a match in 18 years, and he is just as over today as he was then. Is there going to be somebody almost 20 years later that's going to be still just as over, still just as beloved, still just as memorable? Are we watching a new golden era right now? Please believe there was people, and you can find the articles online if you looked, people who were not friends or who are not fans rather of Stone Cold Steve Austin, people who are not fans of the Attitude Era, people who thought it was vulgar, people who thought it was stupid. And you could say, hey, maybe that's us now. Maybe it's us now thinking that all these people are stupid and all these storylines are stupid, and there's kids watching this stuff thinking it's the best thing they've ever seen. So that's just one way of looking at things. But I have to beg the question, are we doomed to Stone Cold Steve Austin being the only pro wrestler in the world for the next 40 fucking years that is worth celebrating 10 years after he's gone? And I'm not saying that Steve Austin doesn't deserve it. Of course he does. What I'm saying is, who on one of these current rosters right now is going to be the next Stone Cold Steve Austin? It's going to be the guy who we're going to be talking about 10, 15 years after he's gone. You know, I don't know. I have no answer to that question. And what makes it even more, I don't know what you want to call it, unsettling, is knowing that in a couple of weeks, some of these guys are about to face the biggest matches of their lives. You know, some of these guys are about to go into WrestleMania. You know, some of them are going to be the main event of WrestleMania. They're going to go in as stars. The lights are going to be on bright. Everyone's going to be watching. The world's going to be watching. But is people going to care in 10 to 15 years? Are people going to care in 20 years? Now, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin might not be the only wrestler that's going to be remembered. There's going to be other wrestlers going to be remembered, but not for the same things. You know, people are never going to forget Hulk Hogan, but people are always going to know that Hulk Hogan's name is tainted. People are always going to remember Ric Flair, but people don't remember Ric Flair's name is tainted. Shawn Michaels, same thing. His days of drugging and alcohol and all that type of stuff. They'll never be able to mention Shawn Michaels without talking about the bad things Shawn Michaels did. Undertaker's pretty well beloved. You know, I can say that. You know, people have kind of flipped on him a little bit due to the politics, but even though he hasn't been outward with any of his politics, but they've been trying. Some of the fans have been trying to tear him down, but nobody tries to tear down Stone Cold Steve Austin. He is universally beloved. Everybody likes him. And he's a mainstream fucking celebrity. Like, Stone Cold Steve Austin can do anything on television and people will watch it. Is there anybody in wrestling right now that's going to walk into a WrestleMania, this upcoming WrestleMania, and have that same thing 20 years later? I don't believe so. I don't believe anybody's going to walk into any program within the next several years and be able to walk out and say, and somebody will say, I remember that in 25 years. And still, I'm not even just talking about remember a classic match. I'm talking about moments. I'm talking about when you look at Becky Lynch in the ring with Steve Austin, clashing beers, and, you know, Steve Austin's in the ring with the Viking Raiders, and Steve Austin's in the, you know, these sort of things that people remember. You know, these are segments. These aren't even matches. We're not even talking about matches anymore. We're not even talking about promos anymore. We're just talking about feelings. We're talking about emotions. We're talking about people having a legitimate connection to the last cultural hero of Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't think anybody is going to be able to match it. I don't think it's possible. Like I said, it's probably just going to be Steve Austin and Dusty. And even Dusty, he, a lot of his fans are so old now that some of them are probably kind of, on the fence. The AEW and NXT and are they doing their best to keep Dusty's name alive? But Stone Cold Steve Austin don't even have to try. He doesn't even have to try. He didn't even start this stuff. I don't even know where it came from. It just happened. And it's it's just awesome sitting back watching so many people have so many memories of this guy, how many lives he's touched, and not just children but full grown adults, people who were teenagers, people who were 20, 21 years old. It wasn't like he was their childhood hero. He was somebody they gravitated towards. I don't believe that you'll ever see that again. I don't think it's possible. And it's a shame. It's truly a shame. Stone Cold Steve Austin is likely the last real cultural hero in pro wrestling. And that's a tough pill to swallow because there's hundreds of more wrestlers out there, thousands more, and they all be pale in comparison to Stone Cold Steve Austin. How in the world can you? I guess you just got to keep plugging along, huh? Just got to keep plugging along, and hopefully you can get a piece of get some small number of people who can remember when you were great. Because there's so many people now, and a lot of the Stone Cold Steve Austin memories that is so crazy is that a lot of this stuff is post-retirement. Like him clashing beers with various modern wrestlers and stuff like that. Like children are seeing that stuff and thinking like that's really cool. Like is it how many generations of people think Stone Cold Steve Austin is cool? Generations of people think Stone Cold Steve Austin is cool. Not just my generation that grew up with him when he was the ringmaster, but people who are older than me who think Stone Cold Steve Austin is cool. He's going to be cool forever. That's insane. Like really try to put that into your brain. And he's a national celebrity, not some small town territory guy like Jerry the King Lawler or something like that. Not to diminish it, but Memphis is one city. Stone Cold Steve Austin is in some ways international. A global star that is beloved on multiple different continents. I don't think we'll ever see it again. I don't think it's possible. I hope to be wrong. I hope that maybe one day, we could say we saw some hot young talent that's, in the Performance Center or in the Nightmare Factory or in the ROH dojo or something like that right now. And he comes out and is really cool and is really fun and is really talented. But I don't see it. I don't see it right now. But that's the problem with 316 Day. And I kept thinking it all day. I kept thinking of that, like, man, all these memories. What is the next generation? This is going to be something that they're going to aspire to and maybe not even be able to reach it. Because you have the children of today, their heroes. Their hero is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like if you're a little boy and you're watching Raw and you see, Drew McIntyre, and then you see that Drew McIntyre is a mark for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like that's a completely different level of aspiration. Like that's insanity. That's a different level of I couldn't wrap my head around it. I can't wrap my head around it. That's got to be like sitting under the learning tree, sitting around in a circle listening to the griots talk about Hercules or Heracles, talking about the 12 labors of Hercules. It's got to be sitting around listening to these guys talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin. You know, he's a myth. He got a mythology now. You could write a fucking Bible on Steve Austin now to some degree. It's insane. I don't think we'll ever see anything like this again. And maybe we don't ever need to see it again. You know, maybe we don't. But that's just something I was thinking about, man. Thank you guys for your time, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah.